Okay, so now we have one layer with a circle, and I just readjusted the timeline menu so that it's possible to see it a little bit bigger. You can go between the different panels and move them around. Um, so we have the circle layer, and I also made a new layer here, the way on the timeline, the way that I did it. I'll delete it first, so we can see how to do it. I went again, layer, new, shape layer, and now we have a layer that's ready for a shape, but it's just a blank space. I'm going to turn off the eyeball here of the red circles so you can just see this new shape layer. It's a good idea to name your layers. Right here in the timeline, I'm clicking on, which is also where all the assets for the compositions are animated. I selected the blank layer I just made called shape layer, and I'm hitting the return in order to rename it. I'm going to call it heart. And so I'm going to show you another way of working with, and then I hit return again to save it. And I'm going to show you another way of working with the stage or the composition window in order to create things. So now I have my fill color selected here above, and I'm going to select the stroke, and I'm going to I have white here, but I really want no stroke. So it actually says 0 pixels, so there will be no stroke. And I'm going to select the pen tool here. The shortcut is G. I'm going to click near the middle on my composition window. What it's telling me is that my caps are selected, so I'm undoing. I'm clicking through the window. And now I'm going to click at about 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock and drag that little handle down. So this is like what we did in Illustrator. Now I'm going to click again at about 4 o'clock, drag that handle down. I'm going to click again in the middle. And then I'm going to go back and click where I started. Now I have half a heart. I could go on and make a whole heart if I wanted to. And let's do that. I'll undo a couple of steps and I'll keep on going, clicking at about 8 o'clock, clicking at about 11 o'clock, and clicking back at the middle where I started. And now I can use my selection tool, which is V, to go back to these anchor points and round it up and make it a little better. Okay, let's call that good enough for now. Looks a little uneven, a little organic and natural. Not that a heart like this is natural in any way at all. But I'm going to stop for the purposes of this exercise. Okay, so now I have a layer with a heart and I have a layer with a red circle. And we're just going to animate the heart layer. So I'm going to enlarge my timeline window. You can still see the heart there, it just gets smaller. And click on that little twirly. And this time I'm going to use some shortcuts in order to animate them. The shortcuts are on the keyboard, and I'm going to read them off, and I'd like you to look down here at this window and see how different selections appear. And there's also a shortcut word or an acronym to use in order to find these attributes that you can use to animate your object. They are T. T stands for opacity. So when I play with the opacity, you see I can move it down to 0 and you don't see it anymore at all, or 100%. So this is one attribute we can animate. We'll start by clicking T again, and opacity disappears. R is for rotation. Rotation lets us turn it around, spin the object around. The first number is about how many times you spin it. The second number gives you the degrees. So looking down here, it says 0 time, and then 0.0 degrees. If you click once, you make it say once time 0, your animation will, I don't have any animation here, I'll click on the time watch. I'll move ahead to 4 seconds. Remember, we only have 10 seconds in our timeline. That's the way we set it. And now set it so it'll turn around one time over 4 seconds. We'll go very slowly. In order to play it, I'm using the space bar. Just hit the space bar. Okay, so we have T for opacity. Let's do a little animation with opacity. I'm at the beginning at 0 seconds. I'm going to click on the stopwatch. I'm going to go up to 4 seconds. I can go up this way. And now I'll raise the opacity to 100. And hit my space bar. I have to go back to the beginning first. And now over 4 seconds, we'll go from 47% opacity to 100%. Okay, so now we have 2 small animations here where we're changing the attributes over time. At my 0 point, I'm going to make it go even lighter. And so we have T for, and every time you hit this, so T is opacity, R is rotation. I'm going to change this rotation a little bit to make it more exciting, making it 14 instead of 1. Okay. Next, R, A is for anchor point. The anchor point is the part that adjusts this middle. The reason why you might want to adjust the middle point, and that's where it rotates around, is if you wanted to have something rotate around its corner, for example. So if a door is opening, a door always opens by its hinges. And to make that anchor point work, you need to hold down on another key, which I'm exploring, Shift key. Okay. Or F, something like that. Anyway, so now I'll show you how the anchor point, I just did shift the anchor point. Before the heart was going around the middle, and now it's going around this right lobe. I'll double check for you on which is the key you use for the anchor point. Okay, so what we have so far are T for opacity, R for rotation, A for anchor point, P, so this is TRAPS is what the acronym is, TRAPS. Position, so we're back at 0. Let's change the position a little bit. Let's move the heart from 0, from where it begins. Let's move it from the bottom left corner of our canvas here at 0, and at 4 seconds. Now let me show you another way of, instead of scrolling along like this to 4 seconds, the other way you can go is you can go to this little go to time indicator here, and I could type in 4 seconds and say OK. And they'll go there automatically. So that's another way of working. You can either scroll this back and forth, or you can click in here. I could, once again, click on it. I could go to 5 seconds. And you actually can type in 500, and that will take you to 5 seconds. Okay, then, so that's, we're going to go back to 0, though. So we can go to 0. And that's one way to go back to home really quickly. And we're going to set the stopwatch because we can't have any animation until we set the first keyframe. And now we're going to click on the time indicator and go to 500 or 5 seconds. And now I'll move my heart to the right, and now we have this elastic band kind of effect. It's going to go pretty slowly, but we're going to do a few other changes. So what do we have so far? T for opacity, R for rotation, A for anchor point, P for position, and S for scale. So for this animation, I'm going to make it look like the heartbeats. I'm going to go back to 0, and then click on the stopwatch scale, and let's start off a little slower. So start off at about 86%, and then I'd like you to go ahead to just 30 frames. I mean, not 30 frames, just 15 frames, not even a second. So you can just type in 15. It'll go forward a little bit, and then go ahead and change your scale now to 135 or 100, just anything over 100. And now go ahead, click back to the current time, and now type in 30, and that will take you to 1 second. That's 30 frames is a second approximately. And now go back to below 100. And let's do this a couple more times. So this time I'll type in 115. Goes ahead again, bumping it up again. Type in again 200. That'll take us to 2 seconds. Bump it down again, and so forth. So when you have a pattern like this that you know you want to repeat, another thing that you can do is you can copy it. So we're going to go, what I've done is actually just scrolled along the timeline here and selected all those keyframes, and I can go File, Edit, Copy with property links even. Copy with property links, and I'm going to click a little bit farther down the timeline, and I'm going to go paste. And so now we've pasted back in those same properties. So let's give it a shot. We only copied the properties of the scale. Now let's do that one more time. So I'm going to go select that timeline, go edit, copy with property links. That means it's going to save all the positions that you typed in. And now I'm going to bring the time control indicator over to 5 seconds and go Command Paste or Edit Paste. All right, so now we have an animation that goes all the way to 10 seconds. We'll click up here and go back to 0, and now hit the space bar to play it. So it's a little confusing. It's hard to see the heart beating, isn't it? So because of the rotation. So we can go back and change the rotation. Let's do that. R, rotation. I'm going to take out the rotation. Take it back to 0, rotation, and 0. The next thing I'm going to do is go back to scale, S, and I think that this would be more effective if it was closer. So another thing that you can do if the heart was beating faster would make more sense. So another thing you can do is just go right into the timeline and move keyframes. I could move keyframes, and I can also move them closer, try to find the right rhythm, and I can paste. Copy those keyframes, edit, copy, and then let's see how that looks. Spacebar. I'm still rotating. Where's the rotation stop? So with the rotation, oh, I didn't quite get that to 0. And the reason why is because we have all these keyframes, and every single one of those keyframes has a little action on it. So what we can do to get rid of all those keyframes is just to click on the stopwatch, and that turns off all of those actions. So one last time, just to take a look at the first few seconds, going back to 0, hitting the space bar, And now we have a slightly faster heart action that's beating and slowly moving to the other corner while it's getting redder. So you get the idea of what you can do with this.